So I'm here today with Maggie, and we're going to talk about welcoming a new dog into our home. And we don't mean a puppy. Today we want to actually talk about, say that puppy or dog over 6 months of age. So it could be a dog that came out of rescue, shelter, a rehome, just person to person. Dogs who are released from breeding programs. You know, quite often breeders have a dog that they've decided for different reasons is not a dog they want to breed, so they want to find it a new home. So when we bring these, teenage-ish dogs or older into our home, it's very different than bringing a puppy home, wouldn't you say?
Oh, certainly, yes. So different.
So you've had a few dogs come into your home, and I have too.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you typically found? So take, for example, Peaches.
So to begin with, Peaches was described as a lovable but hyper dog.
Golden Retriever.
Yeah. So she was 7 months old, and we soon came to discover that really that hyperness was more about anxiety. We took her to the vet, she was put on medication, and she's going to have this anxiety all the rest of her life. So we had this idea of 7 months old, we'll bring this dog home, and she's 7 months old, she's potty trained, she's going to be calm.
Right.
And she was the most disruptive dog we've ever had in our home.
Yeah.
And she had anxiety, but we don't know what would have happened if she had been treated a little bit differently in her puppy growing up phase.
She came from a home, young children, young family, busy family.
They had a toddler, and then they had another baby on the way.
Okay.
And then, so they probably got Peaches before, just about the time they were pregnant, maybe with the second baby. And it's not what I expected at all. I'm not stupid. I know that all golden retrievers aren't the same.
Right.
And
it's like buying a used car.
yes, yeah.
It's great.
And I think especially in that case, the owners didn't really recognize the anxiety. The woman had so much on her plate, just keeping track of her kid and the puppy. She didn't think about it, and I don't think they ever even took her to the vet. She didn't even have her final shots. So it's very different. The dog has a history when they come to you from another home, and the history is a mystery. You don't know.
Right. And I've observed with clients that I've worked with that, this dog comes into your family and you may have been given a nice little list of all the things they know and all the things they do. And that's helpful. I mean, it is really helpful if you can get any background on the dog.
Absolutely.
But even a dog that comes out of a situation where they may have some basic obedience, they may have been housebroken and crate trained and all of these, really great things, that doesn't necessarily generalize to a new home. And so when we get this dog and we're kind of running through their rap sheet going, well, you said all these things were, A-okay, and we're finding these are all really not happening. So that's where a lot of the frustration starts, because just like training, that behavior doesn't generalize. Right. So you've now taken this young dog, not a puppy, but a young dog, and put them in a new home, new environment. Maybe there's pets there, so now they're adjusting to you and your home and your pets and all this stuff. And it's overwhelming for everybody. And so how do we help people kind of navigate that from the moment they decide to bring this young adult dog into their home? Like, what are some helpful steps that we can take to make the transition easier?
One thing that I think is really important is to understand that the dog is probably going to be shell-shocked. If they've been in the shelter, if they've been in a foster home, even if they're just being rehomed, coming into your home, we underestimate how stressful that is on dogs.
Absolutely.
And maybe puppies are traumatized too, but puppies are like sponges that are ready to absorb new things.
Right.
And adult dogs are not, especially if you're getting a dog like 7-8 months, because that's typically where they have that fear period.
Right.
So I think my biggest piece of advice would be give them time, focus on the essentials, find a safe place for them, and they will tell you where their safe place is.
Right.
I've had friends who rehomed a dog and it spent the first 3 days under the bed.
Right.
It happens.
Right. Right. And we can often be quite shocked when,
Right.
you know, I remember this one time, and I know it cracks me up now when I think about it, because I was so used to raising puppies, and then, you know, we had our dogs, but I had all that early time with them and training. And then I brought into our home a 10-month-old, or maybe 14-month-old Labrador.
Yikes.
His name was Wally. Renee, I hope you're watching. And I'm gonna, oh my gosh, anybody who met Wally loves Wally. Big yellow Labrador, had lived with a breeder, so he had been living the good life in the frat house, is what I call it. You know?
Yeah.
Just being a dog, running around. You know, he was a nice dog with a great temperament, but I forgot he wasn't one of the dogs I had lived with all this time. So I go to pick him up, and I put him in my car, and he jumps right in my car, and I didn't unhook the leash because we were only driving, you know, 10 minutes to get home.
Oh boy.
And it was my favorite, perfectly broken in leather leash. I love this leash. If you have a leather leash, you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I get home and I open up the door, and it's in 2 pieces. And he just chewed it in half on the way home.
Probably in 2 bites.
I know, it didn't take much effort. But I remember thinking to myself, like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know
Right.
this dog.
Right.
And, you know, I don't know if he's ever had a leash on him. So it's little things like that that you have to remember, even though the dog might be 14 months or 4 years old, in some ways it's like starting over with a puppy in your home. They don't know anything about how you're expecting them to live.
And even dogs that they say, oh, he's housebroken. Well, he's housebroken at that person's house,
Right.
but he doesn't know where the potty area is
Right.
at
It
your
doesn't
house.
smell like his old
No,
bathroom anymore.
uh-uh.
And so these little things that we can take into consideration, I have found can make the difference as to whether or not a new home is successful or not. Because there are people who, you know, they give it everything they've got, and they try, but things just continue to fall apart for a variety of reasons. And so, you know, our thought about this video is first just realizing that you are bringing a dog over 6 months of age, especially, you're bringing them into your home. They have all their own baggage. They either have training or they don't have training. They've developed bad habits or they haven't. And you don't necessarily know what those are right away. And we do talk about that honeymoon period. You know, we brought him home, and I usually get called about week 4.
Yep. Yes.
After the dog has come home, and like, oh my gosh, he's not at all the way he was. Those first couple weeks, he was so quiet and he didn't do anything, and we know a lot of that is they're shell shocked.
Yes.
I mean, they're just in this shut down, subdued. Dogs are wired to do nothing if they don't know what is safe to do.
Oh, yes, and it's all about safety.
It's all about safety.
Yeah.
If I don't know what's going to work for me and be safe, the best option here is to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they start to get comfortable and get their bearings, you start to see more of their real personality. You start to see more of their bad habits. And then if you, for example, you bring a 4-year-old dog home and you assume, oh, well, he's 4 years old, he won't chew anything, so I don't need a crate, I don't need a gate, I don't have to put my shoes away, because he's 4 years old, only puppies chew.
Right.
But those are signs of stress. Or maybe that dog was a chewer, and, you know, I've said this to people before, you know, that dog, unless they were a stray or runaway or whatever, they didn't end up in rescue or rehome because somebody got up one day and said, Buster's the greatest dog in the world, I think I'll give him away.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
they're usually being moved for, it could be a family situation, maybe kids entered the picture, maybe the family had to move, maybe it's a health issue with the humans. But let's be honest, the majority of time, it's a mismatch.
Well, they've done research that shows that dogs that are rehomed, that are turned into a shelter, a huge percentage is for behavior problems, and a huge percentage is adolescent dogs.
Right.
And they also have found that, you know, contrary to what you would think, people don't just wake up one day and say, I don't want my dog. Many people struggle for months with fixing the problem. Yeah, and you know, we have this idea, oh, they turned their dog into the shelter, they're a bad person.
Right.
No, many people have worked very hard to fix the problem.
Absolutely. And, you know, I've always believed, and I still believe very firmly, that sometimes the kindest thing we can do for our dog is have them live in a different environment.
Yes.
If my home is not the best thing for them, if I'm not the best thing for them or the dogs that live with me, then the kindest thing I can do for that dog is to help them find their home.
I agree.
That they can be successful in and live in for the rest of their life. And, you know, that's a whole other video, right? Because it gets into a lot of really tough conversations. But my hope, you know, is that we can just identify some really basic things that can help you get off to a great start. And I would say number one is when you bring that new dog into your home, whether they're 6 months old or 6 years old, take it slow for the first couple weeks. Don't just throw them into your day-to-day busy, hectic schedule. Well, my last dog, we went for a 5-mile walk every day, and he was the therapy dog, and he did this, and he loved going in the car with me, and he always went to the park. He went to the dog park. You know, so many people take this new dog who they know nothing about, and they take him to the dog park. That, to me, that's like risk number one. It's unfair to your dog. And you might find out he got rehomed because he's really dog aggressive.
Yes.
You find out too late.
Yes.
So slow is better. Don't have every person you've ever met come over and meet your dog the first week you bring him home. Bring him home. Let that dog get used to you.
And I think it's important not to like smother them with attention and affection when they first come in your home. It may be overwhelming to them. Let them come to you. Let them figure out how much interaction they want.
Right. Absolutely. You know, definitely reward them, give them treats, play with them, but not to the point where you're just hovering and you're just forcing all of this attention on them. That may not be their temperament. They may not like that. They may be so anxious about this move that you're making them feel 10 times worse.
And they may be that kind of dog that is slow to warm up to people and just needs to feel safe and comfortable around you.
Yeah.
And they might end up being the most lovable dog you ever had.
Right. I think that, you know, the next thing that I tell a lot of people who contact me is, don't adopt your dog on Monday and sign up for my Tuesday class. Because you don't know anything about this dog. And coming to a group class, there needs to be, at some level, some bond between the human and the dog, so you can work together.
Right.
And if you don't know anything about this dog, how are they going to respond to being in a strange place with strange people and strange dogs? And it ends up being a zoo when they come running into the training center and their dog is either terrified or flying off in 10 different directions. So again, it comes back to that, take it slow. Nothing's gonna fall apart if you wait a month to get that dog into a class.
Right.
The other side of that would be if you have your puppy or dog for a week and they're displaying serious behavior issues, then you need to reach out to a qualified behavior person, ask them what they think, and decide how quickly do we need to get together and intervene. Sometimes the behaviors are exacerbated by stress, but even then you need someone to help you say, okay, your dog's probably really struggling with the change.
How can we help?
How can we help you make this a little bit easier?
Yeah.
How do we help people who bring a dog into a multi-dog home?
See, I dealt with that too.
Me too.
We got Peaches because, Callie needs a friend. Well, Callie doesn't really want a friend.
She didn't agree with that?
No. And, you know, we did it with all good intentions.
Right,
Callie loves to play with other dogs, so let's bring a dog into the home. Well, it turns out they're both really needy dogs, and that creates kind of a problem because Callie doesn't want to share her mommy.
It's not a competition.
Yeah, and I have to say that this is the most difficult experience I've ever had with having dogs in my home.
Your dog dynamic is not good.
Right. No, and
I've lived there. I've never had that.
Unfortunately, it's not like nobody's hurt anyone or anything, but it does require some management. So it's good to think about that too. Just because you think your dog needs a friend doesn't mean your dog needs a friend to live with them.
You know, I've encouraged people over the years, if you really feel your current dog would thrive with having a housemate, and I've had dogs who honestly, they love having a housemate. They're happiest when they have a friend or two.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had dogs who didn't feel that way. So I'll say to people, if you really are thinking of getting a second dog, have a friend's dog come and spend a week with you.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
You know, and see, how does your dog adapt? You can't have him stay overnight because it's not enough time.
No.
You need to have his drag on for a little while.
Right.
You know,
oh, he's not leaving?
Yeah. First day is sort of like, woohoo, this is great, I have a lot of fun. And by day 4, hello, when's this guy leaving? And you may not know how they feel about having another dog in their home until they've had to live with that dog for a week or 2.
Absolutely.
Because this is a huge commitment to get this second dog. And the hardest part is to do it and realize, wow, this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of
Then
bad.
what?
Yeah, then what? Then, you know, I've been in that situation where I had 2 dogs who, they were a mismatch for a lot of different reasons. It was really just their energy levels, where Marshall was one of the dogs and a black lab Clark was the other. Clark was a wonderful dog. I mean, he was. But he and Marshall had radically different play styles. Marshall having elbow dysplasia, he cannot play with that high velocity, chase you down, torpedo you, slam you into the fence. I mean, many dogs probably don't like that, but that's how Clark played.
Mm-hmm.
Clark was a high velocity player, and Marshall wasn't. And I just was constantly having to slow it down and break it up. And I envisioned Marshall being seriously injured because he just cannot and could not play like that. And I also found myself having to have Clark crated more than he needed to be at his age. And I was sitting with my husband one day in the kitchen at this table, and I looked in and I said to him, Clark spends too much time in his crate, and it's not fair to him.
Right.
And it can't ever change because Marshall's health is never going to get better, and he's always going to need a calmer lifestyle. Marshall loves having a friend, but he and Clark were a mismatch. And
it happens.
And it happens. And it was a very hard decision, but it was in many ways an easy decision because I had to do it for Clark.
Right.
And he went to live with a retired couple in northern Michigan, and they think he's the greatest dog that ever hit the planet.
Right.
He's swimming every day, he's hiking every day. He is the center of their world. They adore him. And you know what?
a happy
He's the happiest dog on the planet.
Right.
And he deserved that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't an easy decision. And so, you know, we have to keep this multi-dog dynamic.
I really like the idea, though, of having somebody's dog stay with you, because that's where the rubber meets the road. We have a neighbor that has a German Shepherd,
Mm-hmm.
and he's the nicest boy, and my dogs have played with him since he was a puppy.
Yeah.
But we could not live with him. He is just too high energy. Callie wouldn't stand for it.
Right.
And but they have their friend, and they get to play together, and that's a wonderful thing. And so they get the interaction they need, and then I don't have to pay for
3 dogs.
dog food for a German Shepherd.
Right. Yeah, you eat a lot of food.
So there's other ways for dogs to interact. They don't.
Right. And you know, so we think about slow entry into the home, making sure our current dogs really are looking for a housemate, slow introductions there, you know, and then how do we integrate them into our day-to-day life? If you're looking at, you know, bringing a younger adult dog into your home, you need to make sure that you can accommodate their needs too. I mean, they're coming in, they're still going to need supervision and attention. Likely a 6-month-old dog can't be left for 9 hours while you go to work. So is having a dog walker in your budget? Can you do all these things? And are you in a position to get professional help if you find out that this dog that you've welcomed into your home does have some issues?
Right.
And maybe it's just issues that are part of the transition. Maybe they're serious stuff. So a lot of times people bring a dog in and say, you know, we just really weren't prepared for this. and that's really hard. It's a hard place to be in.
And people ask me as a dog trainer questions about things like that, about behavior issues, and I tell them, you need to talk to someone that has a behavior background because they know the right questions to ask. And I might miss just that one question that pulls it all together. So you need a behaviorist, you need a dog behaviorist or vet behaviorist if you can find a vet.
It is, it's really hard. And, you know, we all want these transitions to go smoothly. And over the years, I've had, I'm thinking 4 dogs that have come to live here after 6 months of age. And each one of them transitioned differently. But they required as much training and time as my puppies did, just in different ways.
Right, and I think when I volunteered at the shelter, when people were adopting, I'd always tell them when they were adopting even this adult dog, treat it like a puppy.
Right.
Just like you would potty train a puppy, because that's how they learn the routine.
Right. You need to learn what triggers them to be stressed, what reduces their stress. Is it chewing? Is it exercise? You just have to learn these things over time. And, you know, that's why I always encourage people, just keep things really calm for the first month and just really get to know this dog that you've brought home and slowly see his personality and his temperament, his likes and his dislikes, and, you know, what triggers there might be. Don't get them home and throw them into the lifestyle that maybe your other dogs have or that previous dog had, because it really can go sideways on you.
Right, and so you brought a dog in your home day 1, and day 2 you decide you're going to take them for a long walk in the neighborhood. And then you find out a lot of things about your dog, like maybe they're reactive to other dogs or people.
Are they well?
Right. So you don't have to take your dog on a walk to get them energy. Take them out in the backyard, throw the ball for them.
Right.
There's other ways to exercise dogs besides walking them around the block.
Right.
That can come later. Once you have a relationship, you know they're going to pay more attention to you.
Right.
And you're going to know their little idiosyncrasies.
There is that moment, I think, and I've seen it with the dogs who've come to live with us, that there's just that day where you really feel, you know, I think I'm getting to know you.
Yes.
And I personally, you know, could be wrong, but I think it takes 6 months, especially for a dog coming out of a shelter environment where maybe they've lived in a shelter for a year or 6 months, or they were bounced from foster to foster to foster, maybe they got recycled a couple of times.
Right.
You know, we don't always know what this dog has been through by the time they get to us. So we have just, you know, the issues of just adjusting, and maybe there's trust, you know, maybe they haven't lived with nice people
Right.
before. Maybe they haven't been treated very well. So just giving that time to say, you know, we're gonna really get to know each other, and don't believe everything that's written down on a piece of paper that came with them, not because people are, you know, purposely lying to you or being deceptive, but because it's that generalization and the adjustment and all the things that happen when a dog moves home. You just have to take the information you got. Okay, I'll file that, you know, that's good to know.
Interesting.
Yeah, good to know. But I'm gonna just sit here and really get to know this dog, the dog that's in front of me, and see where it goes. And I would say, you know, reach out for guidance. You know, definitely go get them into the vet right away and make sure everything's going well. Ask for professional guidance with training and behavior. And anyone that's suggesting, you know, you get the dog on Monday and you get in class on Tuesday, I would probably not do that.
No.
I would go much slower than that. You know, sign up for the class that starts next month.
Right, because you want them to live comfortably in your house. They can go several months without learning how to sit on command and, you know, walk in a perfect heel position. They need to learn your family and your home.
Right. You can teach a dog of any age how to sit and stay and calm, but you cannot teach them how to be comfortable in their own skin. Right. You know, that window starts closing, may already be closed by the time you bring this dog into your home. So, like everything else that we talk about with dogs, slower is better.
Yep.
And that means every part of their introduction into their new life, from coming home to meeting new people, there'll be more than enough time to show them off to the neighbors and let all your family meet them and let your friend bring your dog over to play. We just want to take it slow and let them be successful.
I think that's the key here.
Yeah,
Take it slow.
yeah. All right. Have fun training your dog.